Oi, you know what time it is? You're tuned in listening to Dry That Aussie Metal Guy. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his content when it drops. And remember, stay brutal, you mad dogs. Roof.
G'day, how the bloody hell are you all going?
Today,
tonight.
Where you going, bloody direct bonza, mate?
It's Dry That Aussie Metal Guy here with Crank.com and with thatmetalstation.com. So tonight, it's a great pleasure that I'm having a chat with Küntsquäd, who are due to release their debut self-titled album tomorrow, the 24th.
Tomorrow, I know.
The second through Wormholedeath
Finally!
Records and Black Ruse. It is a debut, but you guys have been around the scene for quite a while. So thank you very much for joining me. Cheers.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, mate.
First off, guys, can you tell me a little bit about kind of where this all started? Because you're all in various projects before Küntsquäd.
Yeah, we were. Go on, Steve, you talk.
Paula and I used to be in a band called Velvet Hammer.
Back in the day.
And we sort of fell out of touch, and then we got back in touch again, and she said she wanted to start a band and called it Küntsquäd. And
put the call out on Facebook, and so then our original drummer Bryce, who's no longer with us, he was in another project I was in called Spine of God, which is kind of like ex-Discordia. Anyway, long story short, he was with us. Three of us were sort of like core, and then when Bryce left, we got ads through Bryce, but Brett jumped in pretty much straight off as well.
5 minutes after Paula said, I want to join the band universe again, who's with me, I went, yeah, fuck it, why not? So I said bass here if you need it. And yeah, went to rehearsal, and when I turned up, I was like, holy shit, this is Velvet Hammer. I recognised these guys from there, and 17 years beforehand. And they said, oh, you have to excuse us with learning this stuff for the first time, or relearning the first time in
since 20 years.
And I was like, well, this is great for me because I'm learning it for the first time.
So we had no songs originally, so it was like
we got together within 5 minutes on Facebook.
I think Brett thought it was an audition when he first turned up to rehearsals. And we're like, no, you can play drums. You're in. Sorry, drums, bass, sorry.
That was Adam.
And that was ads. You can play drums, you're in. But he's awesome.
You turned up, you drums, you're in. That's the audition process.
That was it.
Yeah.
Literally.
Bits, you're in.
Yeah.
And it's worked out really well. Everybody fits together really well. So, yeah.
Yeah, about what time was that? What year kind of you reckon that was, guys? She's kind of
2016, 17, something like that.
16.
Yeah. But we did nothing but songs that we'd already knew for many years. It wasn't until we sort of had decided, or people were saying, oh, you should put stuff out, and I'm saying, no, this stuff's already out. No, we need to write new songs. So we started writing songs that actually defines the band as it is these days, which was completely different when we started off because we were just really doing it for fun. It was just a muck around thing really for us. So it wasn't meant to be who thought we would be still playing, let alone, with a record deal 6 years later, it's just weird how that sort of happened.
Yeah, well, it was funny because I had seen you guys around and that just from doing everything I do with the scene. I seen the name pop up here and there, and then I noticed things started really getting serious. You know what I mean? I think the last 6 months as well, I think signed with the Wormholedeath Records and then Black Ruse, and then I started getting an email here from Wormholedeath and one from Black Ruse, and I'm like, oh yeah,
they're doing their job. That's nice.
No, it was good. So it was really good for you guys, I suppose. Not only having played all that time, together live, kind of fucking busting your asses off in the live scene, with the killer live scene you've got in Melbourne and all the bullshit you went through COVID. It probably. Yeah, that would have been hell because I've interviewed Chuff last night and we were talking about how it was the most locked down city in the bloody world.
It was crazy.
I mean? So it would have probably given you guys time to probably reanalyze coming out of that. Like, what are we going to fucking do with Küntsquäd? Are we going to keep gigging, or are we going to get an album out there as well?
Yeah. Well, we already had decided to do an EP.
Yep.
Before the first lockdown. And it was going to be 4 or 5 songs. And then after that lockdown, we had 8 or 9 songs, and it was going to be an extended EP.
I was a sport as fuck.
And then we got locked down again, and then we came out. Every time we got locked down, we came out with more songs. So now it's a full album.
yeah, so yeah, just kept writing and writing. I mean, what else do you do? You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. It was mad here. It was people were going literally like they were crazy. So
yeah, and then coming out of that, it's been fucking pretty insane. Like watching all these shows.
Actually, you're right. It's actually out of control at the
That's
moment.
madness. Yeah.
There's, we're struggling even getting like bands to play with because everyone's booked. Like, oh, you want to play? I'm already doing a gig. It's like, Jesus, I can never remember a time where it's been this busy. Every night of the week, there's something happening in Melbourne. I mean, it's always been the case, but it's like up to level now since COVID's. We've come out of COVID. There's just so many more shows, so many more bands.
Yep.
And just,
And on top of that, there's a lot of internationals coming out as well. As at the moment, you can't keep up with it.
Yeah, we've got all those internationals coming, like not only Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Adelaide, Perth. Everyone's throwing on shows. So any bands that aren't in on the shows in Melbourne that weekend, they're going to Sydney or Brisbane.
Yeah, that's right.
Woofing over to Adelaide. So everybody's all over the bloody place, which is exciting, but it's bloody hard on the old wallet to keep up with. I tell you that much.
Tell me about it.
That's we're about to start going interstate because we haven't as a band. I mean, Steve and I have been interstate before, like in previous projects, but like we've as Küntsquäd have not been out of Melbourne yet. So this will be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to that part of it, to be honest. It's been a long time since been out of Melbourne for gigs. So
yeah.
And of all the interstate gigs, Adelaide's going to be first.
Yeah, nice. I'll be over for that, dude.
Yeah,
awesome.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. There's some good bands too on with Black Ruse. I know Temptress is on their way over all over the bloody place. There's a whole stack of great bands touring everywhere. But can you tell me a little bit about making this album? Kind of tell me about the whole songwriting process, where you made it, where did you record and all that kind of stuff.
Well, the whole thing was pretty organic. Like in terms of the production, we didn't have a lot of money to spend, so we kind of did it really quickly. We did it with Jason Fuller, he has a studio called Goat Sound. Yeah, so I think everyone knows Fuller. But and we kind of just wanted that raw, in your face sort of sound, and he pretty much delivered what we wanted. And it was done within a space of how long was it? 5 days at the most, and that's all up, including like he'd go off and do mixing on his own, and then sort of like bit of mastering in the end all by himself as well.
Some of those days too, it was just us doing a couple of little overdubs and fixing a couple of little spots. We'd only be in there for an hour for that day, so it wasn't really like 5 full days.
Fuller's a pretty independent it
was a very quick and very efficient process.
But so we did that, and then we've been sitting on it since last year. We finished it around about this time last year, and then Black Ruse came along, actually, because Fuller was the one saying, you should shop it round. I'm like, oh no, who do I see? What do I do with this? I mean, it's been a long time. This is only meant to be like a fun project, right? It's like, shop it round.
And you're probably sitting there going, who's going to take fucking a band
exactly
called
right.
Küntsquäd, you know what I mean?
And that's what we thought, fucking Küntsquäd, right? Okay, anyway, it's like, someone will pick up on it. Anyway, so we got Michael onto the case, and he's like, yeah, just give me a bit of time. I said, but we got a CD ready to go. He's like, no, give me some time. Okay, fine. So we gave him some time. It ended up being months. But he, finally we got like 2 offers actually. One was from Wormholedeath and the other one was from Slip Trick, who are also, I think they're Latvian. So, choose. I'm like, fuck, I've never had to choose before. So we went with Wormhole because their distro seemed to be better. So the rest is history in the sense that we've had to be, like we had physical copies pressed and ready to go. We had to sit on those for a while because Wormhole weren't ready to, share us yet, blah, blah, blah. So it's all that stuff. But we're finally there. Finally at the point where we can put it all out there as of tomorrow. But we've had dribs and drabs, 3 singles.
3 singles so far. Yeah, well, tell us about the 3 singles going through the first one there, God's War, because I've played them all as they've dropped as well. And they're all Americans. The station I do stuff on. We've got me and we've got Tom, DJ Devil Pope down in Tassie. He spun it on his show as well. And I sent it to the owners. I'm like, yo, check out this band, Küntsquäd.
Yeah.
That was straight. Yeah, exactly. Because it's a name that kind of grabs you, and they were straight onto it as well. So let's go through these singles you released, ending with the last one, Necro Nightmare.
Yeah, so that one was actually on our Bandcamp for a while. That was one that we left on there. Yeah. So
the intro, the black intro.
Yeah, Necro Night, and that's been played a fair bit, and that's given people an idea of what we're sort of about. Because like you know, unlike our previous projects, this has completely morphed into something that, you know, is quite, like I said before, it's quite organic, because we didn't sit there saying, oh, we need to be a doom band or a death band or a punk band or whatever it is. Like we don't classify ourselves like that. It's up to people to decide what they want to classify as us. But it's kind of like weird, because we can play with death bands, we can play with doomy bands, and we can play with punk bands. It's like crusty punk bands, and it's like it's a really good community. So Necro was pretty much definitive of the sound that we had evolved into, because it was probably one of the first songs that I wrote because after having not played any new songs, so would you agree?
Yeah.
Totally agree. And then like so Wormhole were like, well, you have to put out a video, you know, like do a lyric video or something for it. And so what was the first single? It wasn't Necro. It was Gods of War was the first one. But Necro had been out already. So Gods of War was the first. We did the lyric video for that, and then they gave us like a few weeks. And then the second one was obviously Christ. And then Necro. So all three of them are accompanied by a DIY video, which I kind of literally did on a little phone with an app. That's how I did that. Because at that time, like we're not bloody rock star. We don't have a big budget. So it's like, you know, we were talking to one dude who's like, oh, I'll do a video for you. And like, yep, okay. And like, and he's like, because he'd done a course and everything. I was expecting a freebie, but he's like, no, it's going to cost, like, I have to pay my people. And I totally get it. I get he wants to pay his people. It's like $2,000. I said, no, fuck you. I'm doing it on my phone. So
lots of 2,000.
Yeah, well, I was going to do
this guy will jump over for a slab. You'll give me a couple of fucking beers there. I'm set. I can get out this with 2 cartons, mate.
I'm sure it would have been perfect, fucking great video, but we're just not in that position to be able to do that right now. So, you know, it is what it is.
No, that's where everyone jumps over and grabs a fucking copy of the album, which I hope they do, man.
Yeah, I hope so.
It'll go down really bloody well. There's a copy of the cover as well. Tell us who done the cover art.
Yeah, so even before, so whilst we were recording, I got into touch with Rock from his Sadix singer. People probably know Rock. He does a lot of art these days. Sadistic Execute. So Rock from Sadix. And I said, mate, can you do a bit of a spruce up of our logo and, you know, and the skull, because we had old school Küntsquäd logo and skull that I had actually designed. And he goes, yeah, leave it with me. Anyway, he comes up with that design there, and I'm like, yeah, completely blown away, because he's that good. I love his skulls. He's got very spiky bits, and I like the spiky bits. Yeah, so I had commissioned him to do that pretty much early on, before the record was even finished. Totally knowing that, you know, it was going to probably be our art for our T-shirts as well as the album. And, you know, obviously it ran it past the guys.
Originally it was for you run out of merchandise. Right?
Yeah, because it's for merch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then in the end it ended up being the cover for the CD, and we so we self-titled. So we debated as to whether we should call the album something, but we decided not to.
Yep.
So that's why the cover is just the logo and the skull, pretty much it. So
where's best place everyone can go over and grab a copy of the album and actually support you guys? I know he's going to have it up on the streaming platforms, but I'm always big on reminding people albums go a bloody long way, and support is everything in this scene. So where can we go to support Küntsquäd?
We're on Bandcamp, so there's limited copies of the ones that we already have pressed. There's probably about 150 of that, 200, close to between 150, 200 of those left.
Yep.
And then I know Wormholedeath are putting out one as well, but that version will be slightly different because it'll have 12 pages. We could only afford to do one page. So the ones we've had pressed are like literally just one page. But the ones that are coming from overseas, will have 12 pages.
We'll have them, I'm not sure exactly when we're going to have them, but we'll be selling them at shows and stuff like that.
So the current ones will be at shows.
And the current ones will be at shows. And
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, yeah.
And Bandcamp. Yeah, no, it's nice to remind people that get along and support that. Speaking of shows, you do have a launch show. I'll see if I can find it over here.
10th
Coming
of March.
up on Friday, the 10th of March. There's the nice little poster for it at the top there. The Vomitorium Compendium Tour.
Yes. Yes. It's a song of ours called Vomitorium.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've got to listen to the album. It's a killer album. They did send it over to me. I've really enjoyed listening to it. It's been really killer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty it's diverse. It's
it is, but that's the thing. Where
it's just like
you chuck the label crust punk on it, and that as well. It can be anything. I've heard like some pretty like. Crust punk that goes from metal to straight up in your face, some hardcore, whatever, it's whatever you're playing. And that's the way it should be, as a musician, to just play what feels right and leave it to arseholes like me to put labels on it as well.
Yeah. Oh, we have had, well, look, one of the reasons we got this really nice letter from Charlie Bellotti, who is the CEO of Wormholedeath, and he pretty much summed it up by saying, because it's probably the best summary of what I think describes the band. And he did say it was lots of different extreme styles in there, but yet cohesive, but yet I can't relate it to any other band, blah, blah, blah. Like it was, I think I put it up on Facebook as well, because that's literally what he said. And then it was like, I think that's the reason why he signed us as well, because we don't actually sound...
We're unique.
I don't know if we're fucking unique, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's what he said. And I thought, oh, yeah, well, that kind of describes what we sort of do. A bit of everything.
Yeah, everything streams in there at some point.
So we're not...
But it's not deliberate either, though. It just happens.
Flavors come out.
Yeah, well, on the presser, it had like from Sepultura to Discharge to Damnzal to Carcass and a whole lot of Aussie grindcore in there as well, man.
Because we are, like, that's one thing we sort of... I've always talked about as a band, like, the Australia sound is so Australia, like in the sense that, like, when you listen to your classic Australian bands, they seem to have that sort of production where it just hits you in the face, irrespective of whether it came out in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So when we say the bands that you were referring to, Sepultura, Discharge, even Damaged, we don't sound like any of those bands, but for us it's more about their ethos. It's how they it's their beliefs and how they go about it that's inspiring. It's not necessarily that we sound like them. It's more about, where we're coming from in terms of our ideology and attitude. It's really old school, I know it.
Yeah.
But it's totally, when I write a song, it needs to be organic. It can't be freaking, what do you call it, contrived, because you can tell when something's contrived. It's just not right, and so. Yeah.
And then when she brings them in, we just work up the arrangements between all four of us, and we just go with what seems to flow better and what makes everyone, sort of think, now it's a good Küntsquäd song.
Different influences, guys. And, like we listen to, one commonality is we all listen to kind of extreme music.
Well, what are some of your influences?
Well, ads.
Stuff like Rush, Pink Floyd, Tool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Megadeth.
I love Maiden, Sepultura, old thrash and death, from the 80s and 90s. Kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll listen to just about anything that was from the rock and roll era onwards.
Yeah.
The Beatles are probably my favourite band.
I wouldn't have picked that.
Not many people would, but it all starts there for me. So, and just as I got older and older and older, I got listening to heavier and heavier music started evolving. When I was 13, that was the year of Back in Black and
Yeah, Akadaka.
The first Iron Maiden album and Ace of Spades. A couple of years later, thrash metal comes out of that, and death, black metal after that.
Yeah.
And you just go with it, you know.
Yeah, no, for me, it's always been like Australian bands. I've always like been, highly sort of supportive of. I always go and see, old school Blood Dust, Abramelin, like those people there. They're, Bean Flipper. I've got mates still, floating around from those days, and they're still doing it. Even Egg and freaking Dreadnought, and they're the sorts of bands that I really enjoy listening to. Australian acts, for me, they're just different to that's not to say
a lot of the backbone of the Australian metal scene, you're saying right there as well.
Yeah, but really enjoy the Australian stuff. Yeah, like they're and I know all those guys there, and that's why I mentioned Damaged. I mean, we speak to this day, Jamie and I, and he's doing a project as well, like he's recording again. So it's really nice to have those connections. But we sound nothing like any of those bands. But I mean, yeah.
But you just absorb it in and it all comes out in a different form.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So quickly go through. I know you're at Jam Space, but tell me quickly about the setup. You're using instruments, the drum setup, guitar setup, bass setup.
I'm very old school. It's
boo.
Nothing
joking.
Nothing digital at all. It's all analog Marshalls. And Boss distortion pedals, and very basic.
Nice.
And crybaby wah wah.
Nice.
Just very old school.
I did have this like old Digitech pedal, this unit that died on me a while ago, and I was spewing as I've been trying to refine that sound ever since. So I've gone through lots of pedals, but same. It's nothing overly processed. Just a lot of I use a Meza Boogie Head. Dual rectifying Jackson guitars, boys.
I use Spectre basses, Ashdown heads and cabs, and my new beauty that I've had, and actually thanks to Jason Fuller, because I was after a new kind of distorted bass sound, and he suggested that I tried his pedal. Which is by Kink Pedals.
Oh, the Kink pedals are awesome.
Which are
Australia.
Made here in Melbourne.
Australia,
mate. And this one's called the Russian Plague. Which is quite fitting because it was around the time that all that crap started. But it's a muff and a rat in one. So I used his on the recording. It just was absolutely brutal. And I thought, how am I going to replicate this? And
you've been trying to find that sound ever since.
I still can't find the exact sound of the album, but it's near enough, good enough. But so I went and brought one, and absolutely loving it. So shout out to King Pedals. Check them out; they're great.
Yep.
And I use a relatively basic 4-piece Mapex drum kit, Zildjian cymbals, double kicks. 2 sets of hi-hats, make it a bit easier to get to those double kicks.
Yeah, you don't have a huge
kick.
No. Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
One moment, kiddo.
That's
My daughter wants to jump in on the interview.
I have one too. That's okay. I have two.
She's moved into my office. She usually sits here and helps co-host radio shows when she's home on the weekend in my little studio here as well.
That's
so
awesome.
It's an absolute pleasure. All about family, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let you get about the rest of your rehearsal. This has been an absolute pleasure. Everybody go out, grab the self-titled album from Küntsquäd. It's an absolute ripper. Need to put it in the stereos, crank it up really loud for the neighbours. Do you have any last words? Shout outs. Thank you. You want to add in there before we sign out?
I'll just say thank everybody for the support. It's been incredible over the last few weeks, especially as we've been dropping the singles. The feedback.
And if you can't be a good cunt, don't be a shit cunt. That's it. That's all we have to say.
That's a perfect sign out. I use it on every show, eh?
All right. So hopefully we'll meet you when we come to Adelaide. Yeah.
Definitely. Will do. Thank you very much, Küntsquäd.
Yes, thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
See ya.
Oi, you're tuned in to Jai That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.